Volume 1, Chapter 1. Dawn was about to come. A cold night spent sorting thoughts through visions of the past and future ended. Let's say that again. A cold night spent sorting thoughts through visions of the past and future ended. A small man, not nearly full grown, stretched and curled under the cowl he slept in. His head was fuzzy with a theater of history. A twig snapped. His eyes snapped open. He listened, not being able to see in the dark, and his mind probed until a mark was found in the gloom. Hunkered down, not breathing, tense. A mass of flesh bounded at him. Let me say that again. A mass of flesh bounded at him and reached his cowl, stamping and screaming in a hysteria. Olo had rolled away, began floating, and sat lazily in the air, still groggy above the fit of rage below. He had forgotten how dangerous it was to travel alone. The huge hairy ape-man was still dusting up his bed, crazy and territorial, spitting and hooting. He set the float spell to drain off a nearby tree and went back to sleep, hovering above the forest. The mind of Olo drifted. He scanned time, looking for clues in the patterns. He searched for a hole in the armored web of constructed reality. Life began in Africa. It left, and by the time it arrived back there, it barely recognized the family they had left thousands of years ago. Adaptation changed us, and we split. So the landwalkers chased off the tree people, and the broken family has been chasing itself around the coast of the world ever since. In the common vernacular of the time, the different species of man were called tree walkers, plain walkers, and cave walkers by the ice walkers who replaced them. They called themselves that because they were the first to go up on the ice and walk inland to see what waited. The cave dwellers had tunneled vastly in the ice, but never ventured far from the advancing edges of the glaciers. They fashioned many of them into complexes for industrialized work, but nothing grandiose because of the limited timeline of its available use. At most 100 years before the shifts in the ice above and below and behind would crack in, the internal structures would give way. Said that wrong. They fashioned many of them into complexes for industrialized work, but nothing grandiose because of the limited timeline of its available use. At most 100 years before the shifts in the ice above and below and behind would crack and the internal structures gave way. Their construction was easy. Heated stones quickly melted any shape. Airways were kept blowing along the walls to keep the air fresh and the ice cold. The ice walkers were their students and inherited the knowledge they had collected and expanded on it, taking the practice to the South Pole and its thick, deep glaciers and ice sheets, some of which were in virtual stasis. The great collection of plants and animals they had gathered and adapted on the ice sheets was vast. A type of grain had altered itself to drain earth from the dust in the passing wind, and this was a base for a whole ecosystem. Mammoths, reindeer, woolly rhinoceros, and 2 continents worth of animals had adapted to life at the poles. They traversed back and forth across the 2 continents of North and South Atlantis, and at times when South Atlantis touched Antarctica with an ice bridge, they would migrate and intermingle there. The mastodon was the southern pole variety of mammoth originally, but both types populated it after the Isthmus of Panama connected the 2 continents with a land bridge 2 million years ago.